Imagine stepping into a realm of cosmic visions, hidden meanings, and transformative journeys. A place where ancient symbols meet spiritual awakening. This is the Book of Revelation, or the Apocalypse of St. John. It is not merely an end-of-days prophecy, but a labyrinth of allegories, woven to guide those brave enough to seek hidden truths. Manly P. Hall saw Revelation as a powerful map of the soul's path through trials and enlightenment. Here, every symbol is a call to awaken to something deeper, something profoundly divine. Let's dive in. The Book of Revelation, often referred to as the Apocalypse of St. John, is one of the most mysterious and symbolically rich texts in the New Testament. Attributed to the Apostle John, it is believed to have been written during his exile on the island of Patmos. The text stands out for its vivid imagery, prophetic visions, and cryptic language, often seen as a message of hope to early Christians facing persecution. Its allure lies in its mystique, blending visions of cosmic battles, beasts, and heavenly wonders. But unlike the New Testament books, it weaves together layers of meaning that extend beyond simple prophecy in the esoteric tradition. This book is more than just an end times narrative. It's a manual for spiritual transformation. Through understanding its metaphors, we can interpret it as a guide to inner enlightenment, a journey that reflects the trials, triumphs, and ultimate reconciliation of the soul with the divine. Throughout centuries, scholars, theologians, and mystics like Hall have sought to unravel its secrets. His approach to Revelation emphasizes the importance of its allegorical language, urging readers to look beyond the literal and see it as a mirror of our own inner struggles and awakening. To understand Revelation's apocalyptic symbolism, it helps to grasp why such intense imagery was used in the first place. Apocalyptic literature typically emerges during periods of great societal upheaval, when people seek answers or hope amid chaos. In John's case, this was a time of persecution for early Christians under the Roman Empire. The fantastical and often terrifying images of beasts, plagues, and cosmic battles reflect not just literal fears, but also psychological and spiritual struggles faced by the faithful. In weaving vivid, dreamlike visions into the fabric of his writing, John provided a vehicle for expressing spiritual truths that transcend the everyday world. The scenes of cataclysm and renewal tap into archetypal themes common to human experience. The struggle between light and darkness, good and evil, despair and hope. Seen this way, Revelation offers a way to channel and understand both personal and collective anxieties, transforming them into a path for spiritual growth and understanding. As we dive deeper into the imagery, it becomes clear that these symbols can reflect both outer tribulations and inner awakenings. With that in mind, let's explore the multifaceted nature of these symbols and what they reveal about the journey of the soul. In the book of Revelation, the Four Horsemen emerge as the first four seals that are opened, each bringing a profound and unique crisis. These riders aren't merely forces of chaos, they symbolize key transformations on a cosmic scale. When we examine them closely, we can see what they represent as fundamental shifts and trials within humanity. The white horse, often seen as a bringer of conquest, can be interpreted as a force that disrupts stability. Conquest isn't just about territory. It's also about ideologies, beliefs, and the expansion of influences that lead to change. As a harbinger, the white horse signifies an intense period of persuasion and the shifting of paradigms, hinting at the way movements and ideas spread and alter society. Segueing into the Red Horse, we encounter the personification of conflict. War, in this context, goes beyond physical battles. It speaks to interpersonal strife, civil unrest, and inner turmoil. It highlights how disunity and aggression can shake societies to their core, removing the fragile veil of peace. The Red Horse forces us to confront the destructive potential within our human nature and the consequences of unresolved discord. The arrival of the Black Horse brings famine and scarcity, portraying a world where resources are limited and inequality deepens. It brings us face to face with the imbalance between wealth and poverty, symbolizing the ways in which human structures often fail to nurture the soul. This rider forces a reckoning with greed and unsustained practices, calling for a reevaluation of our values. Then comes the Pale Horse, which is traditionally associated with death. However, this is more than just a figure of mortality. It represents the cycle of life, the inevitable end, and the collective grief humanity endures, reminding us that life is finite and that transformation requires endings for a new beginning. Death here isn't a finality, but a step in a broader continuous process of change and renewal. Through these horsemen, Revelation speaks to the need for inner and outer transformation. They are catalysts for growth, each highlighting facets of human experience that, while challenging, are essential for true enlightenment. They reveal that turmoil and trials are part of the journey, propelling us towards a deeper understanding of ourselves and our world. In this allegory, we see that apocalypse isn't solely about destruction, but about change. Each horseman driving a point of reflection on what needs to shift. The symbolism here is an invitation to reflect on how these forces play out in our lives and the world around us, with an emphasis that the journey to salvation is often paved with upheaval and introspection. Next, we have the 7 trumpets, with vivid symbols of warning, each blast signifying a significant shift or calamity. The trumpets don't merely signal punishment, they also serve as calls to awareness, each one drawing attention to a specific failing or imbalance within humanity and the world. The first trumpet brings hail and fire mixed with blood, devastating the earth. It symbolizes destruction at the hands of human recklessness. This destruction points to humanity's impact on the environment, suggesting that ecological imbalance is a form of judgment on how we handle our world. The second trumpet releases a burning mountain into the sea, turning it to blood and devastating marine life. This trumpet highlights the exploitation of resources and the unchecked pollution that affects our planet's waters, underscoring how our actions can lead to irreversible damage. With the third trumpet, a star named Wormwood falls, poisoning the rivers and springs. This vision alludes to the contamination of drinking water and the corruption of what sustains life. It's a powerful metaphor for how greed can corrupt purity, harming our sources of life and wellness. The fourth trumpet strikes a third on the sun, moon, and stars, causing darkness. The darkening of the celestial lights symbolizes ignorance and the loss of wisdom, warning of the consequences of losing touch with higher truths. The fifth trumpet unleashes a horde of locust-like beings from a bottomless pit. This disturbing vision hints at the internal chaos and fears that plague humanity. It speaks to mental and spiritual torment, with each locust representing a force that feeds on despair and spreads desolation. The sixth trumpet brings an army from beyond the Euphrates, a symbol of vast destruction. This passage underscores the destructive power of warfare and division, emphasizing the ways in which unchecked aggression can lead to widespread devastation. Finally, the seventh trumpet signals the arrival of God's kingdom, a moment of revelation and fulfillment. This last trumpet calls for reflection on humanity's ultimate purpose and the pursuit of higher understanding. It symbolizes the final shift towards enlightenment, bringing completion to the transformative journey. Each trumpet blast reveals deeper layers of collective and individual consequence, acting as both warnings and invitations to transcend current limitations. They challenge humanity to reconsider its path, urging us towards growth, unity, and awakening. The next step in Revelation's progress is the pouring out of the 7 vials of wrath, which are sometimes called bowls, and they represent the final phases of divine judgment and purification. Each is poured over a different aspect of creation, symbolizing the cleansing and transformation of the world from its current state of corruption to one of restored purity. The first causes painful sores upon those who worship the beast, symbolizing the physical consequences of moral corruption. This signifies a direct and inescapable repercussion for actions aligned with materialism and idolatry. The second is poured into the sea, turning it to blood and killing all sea creatures, echoing the trumpet plagues but on a more intense scale. They can be seen as a cleansing of the collective unconscious, purging deep-rooted toxicity. With the third vial, as rivers and springs are turned to blood, indicating the transformation of all spiritual nourishment. It speaks to the need for inner purity and integrity, as water often represents spiritual life and truth. The fourth is poured upon the sun, causing it to scorch people with fire. This symbolizes the purifying power of truth, which, when ignored or rejected, brings discomfort and suffering. It's a call to embrace the light of knowledge, to avoid being burned by it. The fifth brings darkness upon the beast's kingdom, causing agony and confusion. This highlights the temporary dominance of ignorance and fear in the absence of divine guidance. It also serves as a reminder that truth will inevitably overshadow falsehood. The sixth dries up the Euphrates River, making way for the kings of the east to gather for battle. This foreshadows the ultimate confrontation between forces of awakening and material enslavement, a symbol of the final dissolution of barriers between the spiritual and physical realms. Finally, the seventh is poured into the air, resulting in thunderous proclamation, lightning, and a great earthquake that reshapes the earth. This is the completion of the purification process, heralding in a new era of consciousness. Through these vials or bowls, Revelation depicts not only the destruction of the old, but also the necessary purification required for spiritual renewal, offering a compelling narrative of transformation and the ultimate triumph of spiritual truth over material illusion. As Revelation progresses, we come to one of the most iconic and intense scenes, Armageddon. This is the prophesied location of the ultimate confrontation between the forces of good and evil. The term has come to represent any apocalyptic struggle, but in the context of Revelation, it specifically describes this final battle, where the armies of the beast clash against the divine forces. This conflict isn't merely physical, but also a spiritual one, symbolic of the internal battle every soul faces between darkness and light, ignorance and awareness. The 3 unclean spirits, like frogs that gather the kings for battle, represent deceit, false doctrine, and manipulation, which work to perpetuate chaos and division in the world. In a broader sense, Armageddon is an allegory for the collective struggle toward higher consciousness. As spiritual seekers, we encounter moments that challenge our beliefs, forcing us to face the forces that obscure the truth within us. Armageddon illustrates this, Regardless of the scale of darkness, there is an inevitable victory of the divine, signifying the ultimate triumph of truth over deception. Through this battle, Revelation reveals that even in the face of overwhelming opposition, spiritual fortitude will see the light prevailing. Armageddon, then, is not just a prophecy, but a call to perseverance and faith, even in the direst of times, symbolizing the profound and final shift towards the light. In this part of Revelation, the narrative focuses on Babylon, often depicted as a city but symbolizing a system of corruption, materialism, and spiritual decay. Babylon represents the epitome of worldly temptation and moral decay, something that lures people away from divine truth. Its fall is portrayed as an inevitable consequence of its own excesses and greed. The imagery here is rich and evocative, as Babylon is described as a harlot, adorned in luxurious garments, intoxicating the nations with her influence. The city's destruction, marked by fire, lamentation, and utter ruin, illustrates the transience of material wealth and the ultimate futility of a life disconnected from spiritual values. By this stage, we're reminded that systems built on corruption are unsustainable and will collapse under their own weight. The fall of Babylon also has a personal implication for those on a spiritual path, a metaphor for shedding attachments to superficial desires and illusions, to cleanse ourselves of whatever keeps us bound to lower, worldly desires. This shift leads to a new kind of liberation, preparing the way for a more profound connection to the divine and the coming of a renewed world. In this story, Christ returns as a warrior, leading the forces of good against the beasts and false prophet, embodying the power of divine love and righteousness. Armageddon therefore serves as a powerful allegory for the ultimate victory of love, truth, and light over all that is false and dark. The lesson here is that despite the challenges and battles, divine truth is destined to prevail. Following this battle, Revelation describes the binding of Satan, further reinforcing the theme that the forces of deception and malevolence are limited and subject to divine authority. It's a powerful message that reassures believers of the cyclical nature of struggles, but promises eventual peace and divine order. After the climactic battle of Armageddon, Revelation moves into the millennial reign, a 1,000-year period during which Christ is said to rule on earth, a golden age of peace and harmony. This era is marked by this binding of Satan, who is cast into the abyss and restrained from influencing the world. The millennial reign is interpreted as a time when divine justice prevails, offering humanity a glimpse of the world as it could be when aligned with spiritual principles. It's an era of restoration, where those who have persevered through trials are rewarded with peace and wisdom. While some interpret this millennium as a literal period, others view it as symbolic of spiritual enlightenment and the triumph of goodness in the collective consciousness. At the end of this period, Satan is released briefly, symbolizing that even after significant spiritual progress, challenges remain part of the cycle of growth. This part of the text suggests that vigilance and spiritual integrity are ongoing tasks, even in the midst of divine order. The release and eventual defeat of Satan serves as a reminder that the journey of spiritual awakening requires sustained dedication, and that final harmony is achieved through enduring commitment to truth and love. Following the millennial reign, Revelation moves into a powerful and solemn scene known as the Great White Throne Judgment. Here all souls are gathered before the divine throne, where they are judged according to their deeds, as recorded in the Book of Life. This judgment, described with awe-inspiring imagery, symbolizes a reckoning for every soul and an ultimate measure of divine justice. The Book of Life represents a spiritual ledger in which the actions and choices of each individual are accounted for, This moment emphasizes the importance of moral integrity and personal responsibility, challenging readers to reflect on the nature of their own lives and the consequences of their actions. It reinforces a recurring theme in Revelation, that spiritual salvation requires not only faith, but also a life filled with purpose, love, and respect for divine principles. It speaks to the universal desire for justice and the belief that, in the end, all things are balanced through divine wisdom. Following the final judgment, Revelation transitions into a powerful vision of a new heaven and a new earth. A world purified where all suffering, death, and decay have been wiped away. The former world has passed, and in its place stands a perfect, eternal paradise where God dwells directly among the people. Not just a physical transformation, but also a spiritual renewal, suggesting a world where humanity and the divine exist in complete harmony. In this world, the New Jerusalem descends from heaven, a holy city of unimaginable beauty, built from precious stones and gold with 12 gates representing the tribes of Israel and foundations symbolizing the 12 apostles. This imagery conveys the sense that all of history's faithful, from the old and new covenants, are welcomed into this renewed city. The promise of this new city is one of eternal peace, unity, and direct access to divine presence. And there is no need for a temple or even sunlight. God's glory illuminates everything. This new creation suggests a return to the ideal state humanity was meant to experience. A Garden of Eden on a cosmic scale, where there is no pain, no separation from God, and where human fulfillment is fully realized. It invites believers to imagine not just personal salvation, but the redemption of all creation, a concept that resonates deeply with the hope for an ultimate resolution for all suffering and injustice. The Tree of Life holds profound meaning, signifying not just sustenance, but also spiritual renewal and eternal life. Its healing leaves emphasize that the divisions, conflicts, and wounds of the old are reconciled here. There is no more pain and separation. The river and tree together create an image of eternal paradise, where life is sustained directly by the divine, free from the limitations and suffering of the mortal world. This closing scene in Revelation brings full circle the biblical narrative, as humanity returns to a state of grace and unbroken communion with the Creator. It affirms a vision of eternal unity, a final embrace of all creation within the life-giving presence of the divine. The imagery resonates with the universe, longing for a world where all are healed, all are whole, and where existence itself is a continual, vibrant expression of divine love. In Revelation, God is frequently described as the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. The title reflects God's eternal nature, existing beyond time and encompassing all of existence. By stating that God is the Alpha and Omega, Revelation emphasizes the timelessness and completeness of the divine. This designation also ties back to the idea of God as the ultimate source and destination for all of creation, reaffirming that everything originates from and ultimately returns to the divine. The declaration not only underscores God's sovereignty, but also offers a message of comfort and hope. Believers are reminded that regardless of life's turmoil, God's presence and plan encompass all stages of existence. It reassures them that every aspect of their journey, whether it's the start, the struggle, or the conclusion, is known and held with divine understanding. And this unity across the spectrum of existence highlights God's omnipresence and omniscience, suggesting that no moment is beyond divine reach or care. The Alpha and Omega also signifies a full circle, with Revelation ending where the story of creation began. This continuity affirms that life, with all its cycles and complexities, is ultimately unified in God's eternal vision. It calls on believers to trust in a reality where God's presence is constant and unbreakable, from the first breath of creation to the final restoration of all things. Also in the closing verses of Revelation, we are introduced to the bride of Christ, symbolizing the collective body of believers, purified and prepared for union with God. Alongside the bride is the Spirit, both of whom issue a profound invitation to all. Come. This invitation is extended to anyone who thirsts for truth and spiritual fulfillment, illustrating a profound sense of inclusivity and welcome. This image of the bride highlights the deep connection between humanity and the divine, portraying salvation as a joyous union. It conveys that the faithful are not just passive observers, but are active participants in a relationship that culminates in the ultimate spiritual consummation. The Spirit and the bride together reflect a partnership where divine love is both offered and received, indicating a mutual heartfelt desire for unity that transcends individual belief or background. The invitation, come, also emphasizes the open accessibility of salvation. It calls out to anyone willing to accept divine grace, resonating with themes of love, mercy, and inclusiveness that pervade Christian teachings. It implies that the transformative power of God's presence is also available to all, without restriction, and that the path to spiritual fulfillment is open to everybody who seeks it with sincerity. Through this invitation, Revelation closes on a note of hope, unity, and the promise of eternal belonging. In Revelation's final chapter, John describes a river of life flowing from the throne of God and the Lamb, symbolizing the continuous flow of divine life, grace, and nourishment. This river, clear as crystal, is lined with trees bearing fruit each month, their leaves offering healing to the nations. This vision portrays a world restored and flourishing, where divine blessings are abundant and accessible to all. The river's never-ending flow represents eternal life and renewal, emphasizing that with God's presence, there's an unceasing source of spiritual sustenance. The crystal-clear waters symbolize purity and transparency, hinting at the ultimate truth that flows from the divine. By invoking this imagery, Revelation brings the story full circle, echoing the beauty of harmony and creation restored. A vision of the divine plan fulfilled where all beings coexist in peace and partake in God's eternal provision. The river invites all to come and drink freely. Evil's defeat symbolizes a return to a state of spiritual purity and innocence, underscoring the divine promise of redemption. This defeat is not merely a temporal victory, but one that encompasses the entirety of existence, bringing an end of the cycle of suffering that has defined the human experience. Revelation's message is not one of fear but of hope, inviting us to believe in a future where the divine and human coexist. In exploring these visions, we are encouraged to seek our own paths to salvation, embrace the light within, and open ourselves to the profound mystery that is at the heart of all creation. In the end, Revelation offers a journey from darkness into light, a promise that whatever challenges we face, the ultimate destination is one of joy and fulfillment. With that, may we all walk forward, inspired by this vision, seeking truth and finding solace in the eternal promise that awaits. Humanfluence, out.